Good afternoon. My name's John with the Pine Tree. I have the great pleasure being here with Charity Maness.
Thank you.
Now, you are a local author, right?
Yes.
Now, this is kind of a neat story. This has kind of developed over the years. You now have written 6 books.
Correct.
You were telling. Now,
Yes.
tell us how it evolved. What did you start? How did you really start?
Well, I actually started writing, I discovered when I looked through my memory boxes,
Yeah.
I actually discovered that I had been writing since I was a child, and I didn't know it until I found all my poetry binders.
Ah.
And then when I was raising all of my children, I have 4. Hi, Chris and Amanda Marshall. I started making up stories for my children and realizing that it was important to tell these stories, and they always had morals. And then all the kids started doing funny things, and I wanted to keep memoirs
Right.
of what the kids were doing. And one day my husband said, "What are you writing?" And I said, "Well, I'm writing all the funny stories, the things that my kids have done." And he read it, and he said, "Oh my gosh, this is hilarious. You should publish this." So I started writing more, and so I ended up with, this is a plug for this, Positive Test to Empty Nest, Humorous Journey Through Motherhood. And what it is it's just a collection of all the funny things that kids could possibly do.
Right.
Because you get 4 brains together, it's amazing what they can do. And I admit to doing a lot of things that moms try not to admit to doing.
But most of them are probably.
But most of them
yeah,
probably
got it,
done.
Got it.
So I don't know. It's just that was a fun journey. It was, and it's titled Positive Test to Empty Nest because it was from the day I found out I was pregnant with my first one till the day he turned 18
Got
and
it.
joined the Marine Corps.
Uh-huh.
So and then from there it was writing just took on a life of its own. So I just started writing.
But it's also kind of morphed a little bit because you started. I mean, I guess from your earlier stuff, like that's the funny, kind
Yes.
of Irma Bombeck type of.
Oh, yes, very
type
Irma
of,
Bombeck,
Yeah, I mean
yes.
that kind of. To now you're doing some projects, right? I mean, some history centric. Some of the tell us
Yes.
about, which I think are pretty amazing.
Well, let's make a little bit of a
Got it.
different
Yeah.
leap. So we went
Yeah.
from the humor, and then I actually started working for you a couple
Right.
of years ago writing humor columns. So we stayed in the humor genre, and then the romance genre, and then I was approached in, oh gosh, I think it was 2011. A lady who asked me if I'd be willing to write a book based on love letters from Vietnam, and at the time I knew that that was out of my league, and that's what I told her. And when she told me that they were letters from her husband who was killed in action, I couldn't pass that
Right.
up.
Right.
I wanted to honor his words.
Yeah.
And I knew I didn't want it to be a Nicholas Sparks book. It couldn't be fiction. Otherwise, I wouldn't honor his memory and his life. So what I did was, then that one turned into this. It's Lonely Here in Hell, Love Letters from Nam. Those are Jim Piper's own words in one of his letters. In fact, it was the first letter that I pulled out of the shoebox. I pulled it up. I opened, some of the dirt came out of the envelope.
Sure. Yeah.
And it said, "Honey, it sure is lonely here in hell." I said, "That's it. That's the title."
That's the title.
That was the very first letter I opened.
But that kind of, I mean, didn't that kind of start you down the path of
Yes,
what you're
absolutely,
working on now? I think it kind
because
of, yeah.
So what I did was I transcribed each one of his love letters, and I correlated each one with what was happening on that day in history
Yeah.
in Vietnam, utilizing CIA documents, Pentagon papers, LBJ's private diaries. And I found as I was doing book signings that veterans were coming before the table and were telling me their stories. They wanted to be heard. They wanted people to know.
And are these stories, a lot of them, I mean, that have never been told, but also these guys are at an age now that they know they need to tell them, right? Isn't
Well,
that,
and not only that, I really feel that society can separate the soldier from the war.
yeah.
These soldiers and Marines were treated horribly when they came home.
Oh.
So they've kept their silence. But now they're seeing that society as a whole can separate the man who was holding the gun from the politician who created the war.
Right.
And so yes, my new project is called In Their Words, Vietnam, and it is a collection of interviews with Vietnam veterans. I'm working with a PTSD psychologist. I set up an interview platform, working with her. I make sure they all have a rock, somebody to talk with. I've developed a friendship with every single one of them I've interviewed, I'll never forget any single one of them. They're friends.
Do you find that lots of times this is a section of their life they've kind of walled off and just kind of,
Yes.
or is it,
Yes. There are some that have actually kept journals, but haven't shared them.
got it?
And so now it's their time. It's their time to share, and it's wonderful. It's a great,
When
great
do you
journey.
anticipate that one?
Well,
being
right
finished?
now, probably not until December 2013.
Okay.
It's a long process.
Yeah. Yeah.
It takes usually 5 interviews with a veteran, and I try to only do one every 2 weeks. I need to make sure they have a healing time between the interviews, and then they have full rule over whether they want to edit it,
Right.
take things out, or
Right.
just not have it published at all. And I do have it with 2 publishers right now that are expressing an interest.
Good.
So I'll keep my fingers crossed about that, but not really in a hurry to find a publisher right now. I've got to try to finish it first.
Right.
So, but
So
yeah,
how many years total have you been writing it?
I started, how long have I been writing?
Well, I mean, since you finished your first book.
I think I published my first book in 2009.
Uh-huh.
And I never stopped writing. Ever. Ever.
So you
So-
just can't turn it off.
I can't.
Yeah.
It doesn't turn off.
Right. Which
Yeah.
is a good thing, right?
Except if I'm having a conversation with somebody and they're talking to me and I'm not hearing them because I'm writing.
That happens with me, but that's nothing to do with writing.
No.
Anyway, well, thank you. Thank you
you.
for spending some time with it.